Hi guys, Ken Coyne here, Head of Technology at OpsTalent. Tonight I'm here with Amit, who's the CEO of IT Key Media. Amit, thanks for coming this evening to present at our blockchain event. I'd just like to ask you a couple of further questions. What do you see in terms of the prediction for blockchain, where it's going for the year ahead in 2018?
First of all, I wanted to thank you for organizing such a good event because, that was really interesting. A year ahead, I think it's a really long time when we are talking about blockchain. Okay. I usually try to just wake up and try to see what is going to happen tomorrow in the world of the blockchain. And frankly speaking, what we also really have to understand that, are we just talking about blockchain or we're talking about cryptocurrencies? Because lots of people are asking about what is going to be the price of Bitcoin by the end of 2018, and that's one of those questions that I always try to avoid. Yeah. But I would say that one of the things that we're definitely going to see in the blockchain is going to be an adoption. But a proper adoption of the technology, not the hypes. Because on the lower level of this conversation, we're basically talking about a database. We're talking about a way that how we can definitely try to enhance the way that you're trying to manage your information in a more secure way, and at the same time in a way that you can basically monetize it and you can try to have more value out of that. How you want to do that is based on your knowledge. The way that the community can help you is by trying to present the technology and the way that it could be adopted by the conversation and by how the corporation work. It's just based on them. But the more people are going to start working with that, the more opportunities we're going to see in connecting these two worlds together. So I just hope that we had a very funny part in the speech that somebody says that, do you think the future is going to be how much darker than that? So I would say that the future is not going to be dark at all, at least in my idea. So it's going to be definitely, we're going to see more and more interesting ideas that are happening around blockchain, regardless of if it's going to be around some sort of like a cryptocurrency or something around it, but rather just about a way that by decentralization, by the power of anonymity and everything, that there are very interesting aspects of having a blockchain part. We're going to see much better improvements for everyone.
Yeah, interesting, because you do a lot of work, I understand, in blockchain. What are the best user cases that you've seen currently in practice or are up and coming in practice in this technology?
The best practices of the blockchain. Look, there are two different answers to this. Are we talking about short-term effects or long-term effects? Because unfortunately, there's a very interesting division of the Google called the Google X. So they do moonshot projects. They are not talking about a technology that is going to disrupt something tomorrow. They're going to disrupt something that in 10 years is going to disrupt the whole industry from the beginning. And that is the most interesting part. Because right now you look at the technology and it was like, it's not going to happen. It is too big to be true. But the reality is that this is the technology that is most interesting for lots of people. Having a decentralized system in a general way, it is much more interesting than try to just fix a part of that. A part of my presentation was about the way that people from 1900 try to basically look at the year 2000. And there was nothing even slightly close to reality, because the elements that people had in the early 1900 was not the element that we had in the early 2000. And that is the difference, that basically we are trying to think as much as we can with the elements that we have. But once you look at a decentralized future, the elements that people are going to have in the end is going to be different. So from my point of view, the projects I like are fundamental projects. If you look at some projects like Substratum, Substratum is a decentralized foundation that everything else can be built on top of that. So then you can see a real democracy. And I think if you want to talk about anything, if you want to fix the financial sector, either you want to make the rich richer or you want to make yourself rich. When we were talking about a proper fixing of financial sector, we're talking about making a fair distribution of wealth and all the other part of the things that make a real welfare in the society. So when you're going to have a internet that is not going to be owned by someone and cannot be controlled by someone. And right now everything is internet. Like a part of what I do is about social media. People say, it was like, which part of that? I was like, look, all the internet is social media. So when you can basically get your information from a decentralized information from a decentralized internet, then things are going to be easier. Then things are going to, then people are going to understand more. Then people are going to have more interesting ideas. And the way that we can boost the creativity, we're going to have a better future, regardless of the technology.
And in terms of, blockchain associated a lot with trust, because there's a lot of big trust issues in terms of the internet at the moment, and you mentioned it tonight about companies being hacked and, taking data. Will blockchain resolve this trust issues in the future?
I can talk about it again I'm trying to be very organized in what I want to say. First of all, I really believe that the future is going to be something much closer to Hashgraph than blockchain. That Hashgraph doesn't have blocks and doesn't have chain, so it's literally something totally different. The only part that they have in common is the cryptography part of that. Second part, if you want to talk about like how the blockchain can basically have the security, again we have to talk about it in two different ways. One of the things is that especially by the time that we're talking about the current cryptography, the current cryptography can only be secure up to the time that we're not going to have quantum computing. The time that we're going to have quantum computing, every single secure transaction you're going to have, especially in the Bitcoin blockchain, they can easily be hacked. So that is one of the things that, we're talking, this is a very interesting conversation. One of my friends, a very interesting guy, a futuristic guy from the Silicon Valley, he was just talking about how drones can basically make our lives better. Somebody was talking about the fact that also drones can come and kill you. And he said, a future that drones are so interesting and so powerful that they can be used for that would be a happy death. If somebody want to talk to you and then try to say that quantum computers are going to come and I'm going to lose my blockchain part of that future with having a superpositioning and then try to understand all of the aspects that we're going to understand by achieving the quantum computing, it's far more interesting that we want to sacrifice for the sake of what we're going to have with our blockchain. You change your cryptography point of view and you're going to fix that. This is one part of that. Up to now, all the hacks that we had in the whole world of blockchain was about hacking people, not hacking the chain. There were some small glitches in the beginning of the Bitcoin blockchain, in the early stages of Satoshi's idea, that even at some point somebody managed to build like a few million Bitcoin for itself, but then they fixed the code and everything in the beginning part of that. But right now, every single hack, from the Mt. Gox all the way to the latest hacks that you see, they hack people. If Mt. Gox wouldn't go off-chain with the transaction, they would never be hacked. If ICOs basically have more understanding of cybersecurity and they basically have a proper websites, they're not going to be hacked. So the hacks are not hacking a blockchain. They're hacking the people that they're around the blockchain. The guys at UBS also had a very interesting conversation about not having a customer support. You have your bank account, you do whatever, you blame the bank, you blame other people because you have a person in order to support you with your customer problems. Right. But when you're talking about something that is totally decentralized, then there is no one to support you with that. So you have to be responsible for the way that you are using your funds, the way that you are managing it, and because you are not accustomed to something totally decentralized. So you might do things that in the future is going to somehow be totally catastrophic to you. I can say something also very detailed, that for example, like some exchanges like Coinbase, they even have insurance in case of being hacked, but not when this is a personal problem. Not when you made a mistake by putting your information in a place that you were not supposed to do that. So as long as you understand the basics of what you're doing, then the blockchain, even up to the technology that we have right now, is 100% secure. So if you're trying to basically be smarter than the society, if you're trying to basically say that, okay, so this exchange is giving me much lower commission than the other one, that lower price has its own ups and downs. Maybe that project is basically compromising the money that they have to put on their cybersecurity because they work off-chain and all the problems that they can have with that. And again, off-chain has the reality behind it. Because transaction is low, it makes sense for them to basically aggregate things and then later update the chain in order to basically be able to serve their clients much faster. So, but in the same time, they're also compromising a very big part, and that is the fact that, okay, so it's a Russian roulette. I'm just gonna pull the trigger. If 1 out of 8 is going to be blank, I'm just going to come back home with more money. But what if? So that's the point, that they have to understand where they are investing their money, where they are putting their money, and the same thing can go with the corporations and how they are building their blockchain. Don't just try to hire the cheapest blockchain developers and try to put your company's information on top of it. Try to find a reliable blockchain and then try to add your information there. And don't be afraid of public blockchain. My point of view, private blockchain is not blockchain. Private blockchain, I can tell you the same kind of hash cryptography that you have, put the cryptography into SQL server, and it's going to be faster, cheaper, and more reliable than a private blockchain. For me, private blockchain is just a hype. But if you want to work with a public blockchain, you have to talk to a proper advisor. That's one of the things that I do. And then try to understand with a hybrid of two different databases, how you can use the public blockchain. You can have it's the same technology that everybody has in the BitTorrent technology for longer than what you have in the whole world of Bitcoin and blockchain technology. Hackers or pirates in that sense, what they do is that they have their movies, that is a valuable information, but they never store it. They store the key to that movie on their server. That is not illegal. The way that you download the movie is not by downloading the movie, because that's illegal. You download the key to the movie. So you're not doing something illegal. They're not doing something illegal, and they have a loophole around it. So they are not using it for the good reasons. But I'm just telling you that you can always transfer very valuable information in a public information, in a public way, that your same important value still can keep in a very safe place for you. So you don't have to put your movie, or by movie in this metaphor would be your valuable medical data or your bank information, but rather just a key that is only understandable by the bank or by the financial sector or by the pharmaceutical center. And if that is going to be hacked after this quantum computing is going to hack that, they're going to just understand a meaningless key. The key can only be meaningful when they have access to your other part of the blockchain that is going to be 100% secure, is going to be private, and it's only between you and your trusted partners. And that is hopefully is going to be the secure future of the whole world. Regardless of it's going to be, this cryptography is going to be based on hashgraph or it's going to be based on blockchain. The things that is going to happen is that people have to understand which part of the ecosystem can basically be the best on blockchain and off the blockchain, because nobody can say that the guys at other databases are just stop working. You still are going to have centralized databases that they're working super fast and at the same time super secure. So you can understand how you can basically have a hybrid databases, that some of them can work in one way and some on the other.
Interesting, you mentioned the point there about control, because once you process a transaction, it's gone. There's no going back. Is that an issue you see for the future? You cannot pull back or reverse that transaction?
To be honest, you can. That's one of the things, again, as an advisor to ICOs, we always have this problem with the cashback issue, with especially putting fiat into crypto. Because when you're working between two worlds, that half of it is transferring your fiat currency into the cryptocurrency, and then the cryptocurrency is always a cryptocurrency. One of the reasons, I'm not saying it's a right thing or it's just something that they say it, but that's what they declare. Visa, one of the reasons that they are not working with the cryptocurrency is the cashback issue. You buy your coat, and then you just say you don't like it, so I want my money back. You buy Bitcoin, and then you say I don't like my Bitcoin, but you can't turn it back. But that is where this problem starts. So by the regulation of a normal fiat currency, they have to give your money back because this is your fiat that you basically put it there. But because you can always ask for your money back in a fiat, but not in a crypto, so like this, you keep your Bitcoin and you keep your fiat. And that is one of the problems that they have to fix between themselves by the way that they are doing that. But one thing that is not even a problem, that's the main essence of the blockchain, that the blockchain cannot be edited. So once you add a value to a person and validate this process, that process is being done. So you can always have it back by not putting your money into somebody else's wallet, but rather putting it into a smart contract. So a smart contract can declare that if A would give the money to the B can only take the money out of that if they do the certain task. And the best thing about the smart contract is that you don't need a third party to approve it or execute it. Smart contract would just do it by itself. So if the master B is not going to execute that idea, that money would automatically go back to A, because that money didn't went to the wallet. That money went to the smart contract, and the smart contract can execute it. This is the same project that also, to be honest, like I was working with it for the past 4 months, and I see that even Vitalik even mentioned the same kind of idea, but even in his word, even better. And that was the whole idea of making like DAO ICO. That was the things that I was trying to do with one of my own projects. That you can have something, in my words, that you basically call it a treasury. So it's not that you basically give your money to another person and try to just promise that they're going to do it in a right way or in a wrong way. When you put it in this kind of a smart contract, that you can call it a treasury, like any normal treasury, then you can say that, okay, so 10% of that goes to development, 40% of that goes to marketing, 10% of that stays in the corporation for any purposes. And because this is a transparent smart contract, you can exactly control it. And even you can have a clause that if this company is not going to basically deliver what they promised, then I can have my money back. So like this, the problem with the cashback is going to be solved in a different way. The problem with where my money is going to be solved in another way. And also you can exactly understand that the ICO is not going to be a fast way of making money, but rather a real way of funding yourself and funding your idea and try to move forward.
Interesting, because we talk about regulation there. I think in that conversation, how are we going to regulate this? I mean, is it going to be like EU law, US law? Is it going to be Polish law? I mean, how are we going to manage? Can we regulate it? I don't know.
This is also the point that we're talking about two different worlds. When you're talking about European Union as a centralized government that is thinking and deciding things centrally. One of the things that I mentioned even before talking about cryptocurrencies and blockchain and everything was I tried to just tell everybody that the most important factor of the world of decentralization, that the way that it make it work, it's not a new idea, was having a general voting and try to make sure that the voting can be done properly without a mistake. So if the regulation have to be properly made, the ecosystem have to regulate itself. So we're having a little bit of an issue by having lots of people that they are rebels and they don't want to basically be a part of the society, but rather try to basically go around it. We have a very interesting case of Microsoft. Microsoft was basically going down before they understand that they have to lobby if they really want to go somewhere. Right now, you cannot say that Microsoft has stopped doing the innovation. Right now, you can see Microsoft even passed the Apple regarding the innovation part of that. But at some point, they understood that they don't have to basically say that we're going to take everybody out of the business and we're going to just grow anyway. They understand that they have to work with the system to solve the system's problems and try to bring what they really feel like as a brighter future to the society. If we really, like, one of the problems that I think is a valid argument is avoiding taxes. You don't like to pay taxes. I don't like to pay taxes, but this is our basically personal contribution to keep our society alive. So when you are working inside the cryptocurrency world, when you're working inside a out of the fiat currency, then you can avoid taxes. And we cannot let the governments dictate taxes on the cryptocurrencies because they do not understand a single word about what is happening here. Like I heard, like they want to just say that every time you buy a cryptocurrency, you have to declare it to the government. As a trader, you change your cryptocurrency to another cryptocurrency every day. You cannot just declare it. This is not something stable that you can always try to just keep track of what you're doing. And that is the reason that if inside the whole ecosystem, we understand that, okay, so we have to somehow give back to the society. And we have to understand what is the best way of somehow making that taxing system work, then we can try to fix the problem. One of the solutions that I have, and I really try to somehow implement it, is a blockchain competence center in every single, I would call it a territory. I mean, honestly speaking, I'm not usually thinking like other people do. Like, my biggest problem, if I can say it, is with United Nations. Because United Nations doesn't believe in nations. United Nations just believes in countries. So the real name of United Nations is United Countries. Because like you say, okay, so Kurds are nation, yes, but can they talk? No, because they don't have a country. This is the problem we have to solve. We have to understand that we don't have to give voices to countries. We don't have to give voices to centralized systems. We have to give voices to people that they share the same idea. From my point of view, if half of the people of Poland believe that this is the best way of creating something, we have to give them a voice to talk. But if I want to put half of them and the other half that they hate each other into the same narration, then that narration is not going to work just because they all live in the same territory of Poland. So if the idea want to be based on a country or it's based on a European Union, we're going to have some chaotic answers to that. But if we can understand that this competence center is for the people that they believe in X and Y and Z. Because the world of cryptocurrency is not even bounded in a geographical point of view. So you can have laws that half of them are going to be in Warsaw, the other half could be in Shenzhen, and the other half would be in New York. And that could exactly work. So don't try to put borders around the geographical point of view and try to do that. Neil deGrasse Tyson had these interesting things by going to the moon, how much we evolved as a species. Because then we understood that we don't really have countries. It's just a mental barrier. And you never know before you get out of the planet and look at how it works. If you understand that we have to stop calling countries countries because they have imaginary borders around it, and try to understand the real borders. Because definitely, maybe you have an idea that is different than mine. So we can call ourselves whatever we want and then try to basically be a part of that. We're not just talking about cryptocurrency, we're talking about virtual reality, we're talking about augmented reality, that we can be a part of any country at any point in a virtual world. And if we can somehow try to make these competence centers in a society that we all believe in the same thing, but then regulate it. And then by one society to the other, we can try to do the same kind of like a country by country differences. Then that's a point that we can not only make some regulations for today, but for a long term. So we can first of all try to understand how to tax it, that we can finance our normal daily life. And on the other hand, try to understand that what we are making, we're giving back to society as a part of our contribution. And then that's an ecosystem. Because what we're doing now, we're building an empire without looking at the suburbs around it. And as an economist and as a person who understands a little bit of sociology, that would never work. Because you always have to get out of your building and try to look at the suburb. So if a big building is giving back to their neighbor and is giving back to their society, is not because they are doing charity, because ecosystems always work. And if the world of cryptocurrencies and blockchain want to really be successful, they have to understand how they are evolving, but how they can give back to the society, and everything have to basically develop in an even way.
Wow, some interesting challenges ahead for the world economy, and some good debates to be had. But one final question for you. So in terms of a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the highest, how much do you believe blockchain will be the revolution for the next 20 years?
I think I just said that I believe in Hashgraph more than blockchain. Yeah. So I think if you just change the topic into Hashgraph, I would say that the real problem with the Hashgraph right now is the central. I also mentioned something about that centralization is not a 0 and 1. So something can be logically centralized, politically centralized, or basically like from a geographical point of view centralized. One of the biggest problems with the Hashgraph, that is a huge problem, that it's a patented idea being developed in a specific place. If they can fix that, if they can somehow try to understand that they can do what Satoshi did, put it for everyone and try to step backward, those ideas are much better than a blockchain. So what I can tell you is that from my point of view, blockchain is a MySpace of the technology. It is going to evolve the whole idea of a social media of point, but if you're going to wait for Facebook to come, still live with MySpace. So create your profile in your MySpace, but be careful that in 10 years you have to delete it and find your technology somewhere else. But the best thing is, those people that they had the highest amount of reach on their social media were the first people who started their Facebook pages. Exactly. So you adopt yourself with the lower technology, with the early adoption of the technology, and that makes you be more visible and more interested to like more into the contact with the next technology that is yet to come. I don't see it, to be honest with you, because I'm literally analyzing maybe at least like the first 400 or 500 things regarding the market cap, regarding understanding the technology and how it works. Some of them are really interesting. But when I take a look at how much they're looking at it from a commercial point of view and how much they're looking at it from really fixing the problems, they're not in the same line. And if you look at it, even if Elon Musk tried to go to Mars, look at who is financing it. It's NASA. And that is the problem that we're missing. Nobody cares about Poland or United States in order to fix the country, because they are private entities and they want to make money for their own company, and it makes sense. So if we want to find a proper blockchain solution or any kind of a solution that is going to somehow help with the whole idea, we have to understand that we have to find a government or at least an entity that cares about a bigger picture rather than one entity that they want to basically just put something on themselves and then try to make themselves richer. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it, but then this is not going to be the solution for somehow fulfilling somebody else's prophecy. This is going to be something that makes me a famous person or a rich person based on what is really making me happier. So if you want to really try to do that, I would say, like most other real revolutions that happen in the technology, we have to see governments would somehow have hand in hand with the private sector. I'm not saying that they do it by themselves. Do it hand in hand with the private sector. Not to give their money to me to build rockets, because maybe I can build it with a piece of paper. That would be the best thing I can do. Give it to a Elon Musk guy to just bring you back to Mars. Give the money to the right people with the right mindset in the whole world of the whole decentralization, and try to just see how the solution would come up and try to make something based on that. We're living in a world of hypes. Like corporations would see that startup is a new thing, and then they say, okay, so I have to invest in startups. Tomorrow blockchain is more interesting than a startup, so I'm going to dump startups and I'm going to start investing in the blockchain. Corporations have creativity, corporations have everything, but the only difference is that startups have nothing to lose, corporations have a lot to lose. That is the only difference. That's why you see the the startups are doing innovation. That again, innovation doesn't have a meaning. If you go to the dictionary, innovation means to innovate. Yeah. So there is no meaning behind that. Innovation is just doing things in a different way. I have nothing to lose, so I just do things in a different way, and I see how the result is going to happen. But if I am a big corporation, I'm a multinational corporation, if I do things differently, I'm going to have legal issues, I'm going to have structural issues. So I wait for a startup as a sandbox in order to do it for me, and then I adopt the whole technology.